Hey, hi. Thanks for stopping by. It's Peter from Watch Retrospect. Hey, today we're going to talk about my latest dive watch. And it's obviously, as you look here at the screen, it's going to be a Doxa. This is my Doxa Sub 200. This Sub 200 is actually a reissue of a watch that came out in 1963. And that was a reference 11804-4. And that was actually like the fourth iteration of that watch, and it was a black dialed watch, and it had the name of Shark Hunter on it. To this day, Doxa still uses that Shark Hunter term for all of their black dials. But this is the watch in which this is a reissue of. This is the Doxa Shark Hunter. It was actually a 300-meter watch. If you look at it there, it says super waterproof. And if you look at the indices and if you look at the indices and you look at the handset, it's very similar to what the new one is. The case is almost identical. The one difference is obviously the bezel. The bezel, that's kind of an old style 60s bezel. I actually have one of my watches. I have a Certina on. I'll show you the bezel on that watch, and it looks almost identical to that. But this again was that watch came out in 1963, was really their first effort at a dive watch. They're a little bit more famous for their other ones that came out later in the 60s. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Let's talk about Doxa as a company. The company started in 1889. The founder was Georges Ducommun. He started tinkering with watches as early as 12 years old. And within the first 20 years of the business, his company, Doxa, came out with a 8-day caliber clock that was actually used in automobiles, and including the famous Bugatti automobile. So in 1907, they came out with this clock that found its way into cars and ships and planes, apparently, and it had an 8-day reserve. So pretty crazy. And again, not until the 1960s, early 60s, that they start working on this watch here. Again, this watch was released in 63. The one thing you'll notice about this watch is the case is very similar to a Omega Seamaster. And the thing is, it's not a copycat, it's not a homage watch or anything. The fact is, there was one company, I would think in Switzerland, that made these cases for both Omega and for Doxa and some other companies. And that company, I'm probably going to hack the name of it here, but it was Hauganin Friers. Again, I'll say it, Hauganin Friers, if I'm saying it right. But they actually made the case for many different companies. So this thing is almost identical to the Seamaster case with the twisted lugs and everything. But very nice case. Very nice case. It's got beautiful brushing along the sides here. They do a nice chamfered edge. That's got a really nice polish to it. And I love the way that comes around and wraps around the very front of the lug. Kind of like the way they do that. And the same thing on the bottom. It's got the bottom chamfer that's all polished. And again, it just wraps around that front end of the lug. There's a lot said about these watches as far as some flaws on them. I kind of knew what to expect when I bought this watch. And everybody complains about the loom and the clasp in particular. And when I got the watch, it was, those were verified. Those were verified, those claims. The loom on it is, at best, adequate on the dial. Now, in their literature, and, you know, they're supposed to, this orange marking on the sapphire bezel insert, which is what it is, it's sapphire, just like the crystal, is supposed to be loomed. And I can sit here and put this under light for 2 minutes, and the bezel barely looms. It does not loom. My naked eyes have never seen it. I could put it under camera, and it would take me like 2 minutes to put it under light, so I wouldn't even take the time to do it. But trust me, the bezel, pretty much, the loom is non-existent. So that was one of everybody has a pet peeve about that, and they talk about that. The other big complaint is not the bracelet. The bracelet is crazy good. I love this bracelet. But the other thing is the clasp. Everybody talks about how cheap the clasp is. There's a few aspects about it here that we'll show. One of the first things I find is you come by, you know, this bracelet is so smooth. And then you come down here and you hit this little edge here. And this little edge, which is where you put your finger to pull it up. It's almost sharp. I mean, it's not like you cut your finger, but it is literally sharp. And it just kind of gives the watch an unfinished feel to it. And the same thing with this edge here. And another thing with the clasp. Let's take a look. And this little T-bar, the very, very top here, this top T section, comes down and just pressure fits on this little teeny tab right here. And it kind of snaps down on it. It's just friction fit. You pull it up, and that's what it is. That comes down, and then this comes down. And I'm sure it's secure. I mean, I'm sure it's secure. My only question with it would be in longevity, how well that little tab, that little thin tab right here, will really last over fatigue. It may fool me and last forever, but I kind of question how the longevity of how that will hold up with time. But not too worried about it right now. Like I said, it seems to clasp nice and tight. This is the thing everybody talks about, and it's the wetsuit extension. And it's so cheap. It's so cheeseball. I mean, that's the only word I can tell you about this. It's a wetsuit extension. It's nothing I would ever really use. And the solution is close it up, out of sight, out of mind. You'll never use it. And sure, it rattles. It rattles a little, but that's not really hearing it there, but it rattles, and so does most bracelets have a rattle to it, so it's not all that big of a deal. Now, as I sit here in this clasp, all in all, aesthetically, I very much like it. I like the way it's brushed here, and it's brushed here, and then you have the safety clasp comes down with the Doxa signature, and that's polished, and then the Jenny group fish is polished. So it's kind of nice and contrasting, and it's real compact. And I visually, I very much like it. It definitely is not of the best quality underneath everything, but it's a sin I can look beyond. If you look at the indices on this, very, very simple, very minimalistic watch as far as the indices. You got some nice white luminaire on a silver indice. The handsets, normal handsets, a lot of the Doxa watches or other watches have a much bigger minute hand and a much smaller hour hand. And it's being a dive watch, they really, their intent is that minute hand is what's really important, not the hour hand when it comes to diving and decompression times. So this one has got more of a normal looking handset, and again, very similar to the original, to the very original. Again, the sapphire bezel insert is obviously way different than the original. I purposely wore my Certina. This is a Certina Super PH 500M. I haven't done anything on this watch. I've had this watch for a while, but if you look at the bezel is almost exactly to the T, other than the color being blue here. That was on the original Shark Hunter that the watch we're looking at today is a reissue of. So I just wanted to kind of show you that's kind of the 60s style dive bezels that they had. The bezel it's tight. It has, it's tight. It lines up. There's no back play in it. The sound of it here, listen to this. And then kind of compare it to my Christopher Ward, which I also have on, which my Trident. And just listen to this. And what I find with the Doxa, it works. It's fine. The sound kind of gives me a sense that, like, whatever that mechanism is underneath, like it's on nylon, like it sounds like the friction is up against nylon as opposed to anything metallic. That's neither really here nor there, but just my view of it. But all in all, it works. My relationship with this watch so far is kind of like, have you ever met anybody, or you saw a card, maybe a watch, a piece of art, whatever it is, your first impression is like, something is just not right, be it something, like a car or something like that. It's like, yeah, I really think that's ugly or something like that. And then the next thing you know, you find yourself liking it. And you kind of find in life sometimes that the finer things grow on you. Sometimes in a progressive time, and other times pretty quickly, you can flip on it. And when I first got this watch, I had known of the flaws that we just kind of discussed. And so I was expecting that. And when I got it, I kind of confirmed, yeah, those flaws are true. And the color right off the bat was kind of creamier orange than I had expected. There are other watches, the Sub 300T and the 600T. Those have more of a vibrant yellow, orange to them. And this was a little just different, and it wasn't what I expected, even though some other reviewers had mentioned that. And the first day I had this watch, I honestly was ready to call up the vendor I got it from and get a return authorization and send it back. I just did not like it. And I remember telling a colleague at my job, yeah, it's just not what I'm really thinking it was. And she's saying, just send it back. And I even made a comment. I says, yeah, but I know better. I know I could wake up tomorrow and be in love with it. And damn, if that's not what happened. After wearing this watch for about a day and a half, I have fallen in love, not only with the watch, this particular watch, but even with the brand and their history, because they have one heck of a history. But I absolutely love this watch. Speaking of their history, just real quick, Jacques Cousteau, this was his preferred brand. And in the late 60s, he was the sole distributor in North America. Especially he was involved with the research and development of their more famous watch that came out in 67 and 68. They came out with the Sub 300s, and then eventually even came out with the Sub 300 with the first publicly available helium escape valve. So they got a great history. And like I said, if they're the preferred brand of Jacques Cousteau, I don't need to know a whole lot more. That says a whole lot about the company. But let's put this on and take a look at how it feels. And that's the reason. That is the reason why I absolutely love this watch. Is the present it has. It's so balanced on the wrist. And this Beads of Rice bracelet, I don't know if we mentioned that's the name of the bracelet, Beads of Rice, is so comfortable that it might even replace. I love oyster bracelets, oyster style bracelets. My one Rolex, and I got that style on many other watches, and I love it. But this thing, I am absolutely in love how this thing fits. This case, it's not the closest fitting to my wrist or anything, but the sum of the parts, the sum of all the parts of this watch is I'm absolutely in love with it. And when I first got it, I wasn't at all, but I knew that can change overnight. And I'm already in a honeymoon phase with this watch. I wear it all the time in just a short, 10 days that I've had it. And it is just a beautiful watch. I'm really thinking of either getting another one of these in a different color, because they do offer about 6 or 7 colors. They make a Caribbean blue that I really like. Or I may just go for the Sub 300T, which is a little more radical watch. In fact, that thing is actually rated at 1,200 meters. This one obviously is just a 200-meter watch, hence the name Sub 200. But this, I'm kind of really floored that I'm so moved by this watch, how well it fits me, what the presence it has. That yellow dial, everybody makes a comment on it, and it is so comfortable, so balanced on the wrist. And another thing too is its specs. It's a 42 millimeter. It's only about, I think, lug to lug is like 46, and you got these short little lugs on it. It's nearly 14 millimeters thick. I think it's 13.8 is what they show on spec, but it's mostly this domed crystal that takes it up. So it does not in any way fit like its specs. This thing fits like a 40, so very easily. This fits like a 40 millimeter dive watch, and much lower profile than the spec would tell you, just because of that dome crystal. But this is a super watch. Orange may not be for everybody, but they have all sorts of different colors. They have a black one. The black one they actually do call the Shark Hunter. This orange one they call the professional model. They always have. They have different names for their different color dials. But Doxa, the very first company to come out with an orange dial diver, in my mind, I thought I really wanted a orange diver. But when it really came down to it, I really decided, just go with a Doxa. Doxa is associated with orange as the way a Ferrari car is associated with red. So a Doxa it was, and I absolutely love it. This is just a great fitting watch. Tremendous history, some of the best history in dive history. So you cannot go wrong with this thing, and I'm absolutely in love. That's all I can really say. That's my final comment, is how much I just love this Doxa Sub 200 in the orange color. This is Peter, Watch Retrospect. I really appreciate you stopping by. Any questions, please leave them in the comments. If I know the answer, I'll definitely respond to you. But thank you so much for stopping by again, and we will see you soon. Thank you so much.